And welcome back to Unpopular Opinion. I'm your host, Grant. And as promised, we got a guest on the show today, good friend of mine. One of the guys that I football and sports knowledge that I respect. Had him on the show before, haven't been on in a little while, but we got Matthew Lyle of the Big Blue Breakdown, Cross Sports Network. He's 1/3 of the RTF Sports Talk show that we do 5 days a week at 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Matthew Lyle, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be here. Excited to talk some sports. I enjoy the selfless plugs you give me. It saves the work I have to do.
Hey man, that's what friends are for.
Exactly.
So, just
if there's one thing I like to do, it's come on and talk about myself. So thanks for doing that for me.
Oh yeah, I know that for sure. So let's just start you off with an easy one. General thoughts of what you saw yesterday. It's in the Sugar Bowl, Georgia, Texas.
Man, look, I don't know. I try not to sound like an SEC apologist and say, oh, well, it was a bowl they didn't want to be in. It was about the playoffs. But because I always feel like that's a cheap way out. You accepted the bid to the bowl, you better show up and play. So that's the thing that kind of frustrated me about it is I feel like they were better than Texas, but I feel like Texas was okay. Texas wanted that win. Texas being ranked number 15, if it wasn't for Oklahoma getting to the playoffs, they would have been in the Citrus Bowl or something. So they felt like they had a great opportunity to prove something, and Georgia didn't. And I'm not going to make an excuse for them because there's so many players on a roster that if you got guys who don't want to be there, put a freshman in for next year. But you went with your starters. Fromm was out there. All the running backs was out there. I think the cornerback, number 18, did sit out to protect his future. But if you accepted the bid, you showed up, you got embarrassed. I mean, the late score with 14 seconds made it look somewhat respectable, but you got outplayed. And I would love to sit here and say, they're a better team than that. They still deserve to get in the playoffs. But for everybody who says they shouldn't, they have a very valid point now because what I saw yesterday was on par with the way we crucified Notre Dame and Oklahoma for a quarter. You didn't show up, so you don't deserve it.
And that's something I can agree with because from what I've seen, the takeaways from that game, Texas defense, they just came out and smashed Oklahoma's offensive line in the mouth. Every blitz play, Fromm was under pressure. He could not do anything.
Yeah,
every throw he made under pressure was an errant throw. They just came out and outplayed them. They embarrassed them.
And to your point, Matthew, that's a good point because that's the reason why I asked you that question because all over the social media and I'm in these sports groups as well, just like you are in some of these sports groups, and that came out a lot yesterday about whether or not Georgia really wanted to be there, and I said, well, when everybody got to play, Fromm played, Swift and Holyfield, the main guys played, and Hardman, and Ridley, I can't remember his first name, Calvin Ridley, little brother, he played. And for me, when all your horses play, I don't think you can use an excuse of, they didn't get up and play. Now, do I still believe Georgia was one of the best 4 teams and deserved to go to the college playoff? Absolutely. Absolutely. But, that's the way the chips fall. And that's the reason why I wanted to throw that one in there first.
Well, I think the thing that to me that was so disappointing, and from playing football and knowing people that plays multiple positions at multiple levels, it would have been one thing if they would have lost 56-50, because when it's defense and you got to bring that intensity against a really good offense that put up points on a lot of people in the Big 12, I get that. I get that the defense may would have lost its intensity, but as a wide receiver, as a running back, you just love to catch footballs. There's a reason these wide receivers go to 7-on-7 camps and they do padless drills. As a wide receiver and a quarterback,
I love it.
You like just going out and playing pass and catch.
Yep.
So the fact that you could have had a great opportunity against a defense that isn't that impressive, went out there, and if you were Swift, put up 300 yards rushing. If you were Calvin Ridley's little brother, came out there and put up 12 catches, 185 yards, and 2 touchdowns, because the defense is going to let you typically, and the fact that they didn't bring the intensity.
Yep. Swift fumbled twice.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that when you're done playing football, you continue to play flag in these passing leagues. You don't go out there and tackle because that's the unfun part of it. That's the part that takes a toll on your body. So the fact that the decent Texas offense didn't really shock me. The fact that offense up until the last 5 minutes was at 7 points.
I agree. What you got for him, OG?
I heard you're a big Patriots fan, Matt.
Yep.
For you, which Patriots Super Bowl resonated the most with you?
The one for me, I think the one that I'm always going to remember is the Falcon one, obvious.
Yes.
Because, I mean, so much history was broken. An older Tom Brady showing you that he can still do this. There's also a lot of love I got to give to the one in 14 against the Seahawks because really Tom Brady's had two careers. He had 2001 to 2008 when he broke his leg, and then he had 2012 till now. 2008 to 2012, you kind of forgot about him. Mark Sanchez and the Jets did their thing. They were kind of leading that division. So you kind of forgot. So when he was able to get back and actually win one, it kind of reamped the chapter 2 in the Tom Brady book. And then there's the negative one, that the fact that we could have history that 19-0 was very close, and
Right.
it let it slip away. So that one's always going to have a stain in the back of my head that a great opportunity gone, other than some of the other losses. But that one's going to always hang with me. But as far as the good side, give me that 28-3. So many people, by that point, Tom Brady's legacy was set, and the haters were out.
You should have heard me talking.
Oh, yeah.
So many.
You should have heard me talking.
So many friends and haters on social media was at halftime. It was ridiculous. At halftime, I wanted to turn the game off, and to see it just slowly come apart, and every play, how the haters kept making excuses, and then when it was overtime, and they were marching, it went dead silent, and that was great. That was great. And then
I almost broke my phone, man. I was so mad.
Then the 24 hours of just pure saltiness that followed that and ensued. It was a great moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, listen, man. I can remember that night, and I was cheering, man. I don't know why I hate Brady. I just don't know why. I grew up a Peyton fan, so I guess naturally it's kind of like that thing that you just hate Brady because that was the rival. But let me ask you this, Matthew, because I know we're gonna make game picks on RTF.
Right. Real quick for you, Billy, not to cut you off. You know what? I have this discussion with a lot of people on why athletes are hated. Have you seen the Batman movie where the guy says you either die a hero or live long enough to be a villain?
Right.
Well, you either retire a hero or you play long enough to be hated. I mean, remember Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th round.
Yep.
The dude was a hero for underdogs for years. Once that second Super Bowl came, you loved him. But when that third came, and then he started being a pretty boy, and he married Giselle, and he started winning more Super Bowls. And Spygate came out, and he was no longer a great story. Same thing happened with Steph Curry. When he beat Big Bad LeBron in 15, he was babyface Curry with his adorable daughter. 3 years later, he's the enemy. We hate him. He's swagger.
This is very true.
He's horrible. You either retire on top and be Rudy, or you play long enough to develop haters. I never thought I'd see the day where people down Jordan in the manner they do. I mean, Jordan was a hero for 6 years. 95, 96, and 98, he was an idol. Now, they can't wait to drag him through the mud. So it's one of those things.
That's a good point. I like that point. But don't give me a score to the game. Don't give me who's going to win the game. But most people are already writing Baltimore off in this wild card game. Give me some keys on what you think Baltimore have to do, not need to do, what they have to do in order to win this game.
Stop Phillip Rivers in that offense. Baltimore, more than any team other than probably the Chiefs, has an identity unlike any other, and it's just run the ball as much as possible. If you can go a whole game, and it sounds silly in the NFL, where Lamar Jackson doesn't have to attempt to pass over 6 yards or doesn't have to throw the ball more than 15 times, you will win. They will win the Super Bowl because they have an identity and they have it well. If you ever make him get out of that element, a la what happened when the Chiefs, they were beating them for 55 minutes, but that final 5 minutes, he had to become somebody he wasn't, you're going to lose. So Baltimore has to keep the Chargers out of the end zone. If you do that, then that means Baltimore can be as Baltimore as possible.
Good point.
So I got a question for you. So you remember when Bill Belichick benched Malcolm Butler in that Super Bowl? Do you think his antics will continue? You know, if you guys make it further enough in the playoffs to get back to that position, do you think Bill Belichick will continue with these antics at, you know, pitting a team out there on the line without, you know, their superstar players?
Belichick Tom Brady if he won, but is almost like why Bama keeps sneaking into the playoffs. You can hate every decision he makes, but it tends to pay off. Now they did lose the Super Bowl, and the Eagles were slinging the ball everywhere. But look at Malcolm Butler since he went to Tennessee; he's been a liability. So right. I'm just starting to wonder: was Bill Belichick being petty, or did Bill Belichick outsmart us all once again and saw something in the horizon and said, "You're going to be a liability"? I don't know. It's a chicken.
Yeah, because he still hasn't said why he benched him.
And is it a chicken and the egg thing? Is the reason Malcolm Butler is so bad this year because his psyche is ruined from the Super Bowl? I don't know. But I feel like when Bill Belichick makes a decision, love it or hate it, it pays off. And, I mean, obviously things could change and, you know, the butterfly effect. But he trades Garoppolo, then Garoppolo tears his ACL. I mean, obviously that could have been different if he was in New England on the bench, but now the man's got an injury problem. Now you're like, okay, I'm kind of glad that's not our backup. I'm glad I'm seeing that he does have bad. I mean, I'm not saying he does. Maybe he'd come back and never be a problem. But now you're starting to see things unfold, and you're like, okay, not the worst thing that he's not on New England. So obviously, if we'd have won that Super Bowl, it would have been one thing. And if Malcolm Butler would have made the Pro Bowl, it would have really been bad. But seeing Malcolm Butler struggle, seeing Dion Lewis not really be great, it kind of justifies all those decisions.
Yeah, it seemed like Bill Belichick kind of sees stuff before it happened. I don't know how. I'm sure you know what's going on in Pittsburgh right now. Antonio Brown, we talked about it in our little group the other day. What you think should happen with Antonio Brown, and do you think Mike Tomlin should be fired? Who needs to go?
Well, it all depends on what you want. I mean, are you wanting to sell tickets? Because you need a guy like Antonio Brown to sell tickets. If you want a Super Bowl, you got a 30-year-old receiver who's causing problems in the locker room, who's going to want a lot of money. You can't put all your money, all your chips in that table right now. It's not like the man's 23 and just acting like Odell. I mean, he's 30-year-old and he's been causing problems all season. So if you just want to continue to put butts in the seats and put up a 9-7 record and put up good fantasy numbers, you keep him. If you're trying to move on, win a Super Bowl, you got to move on. And as far as Tomlin goes, maybe it's his time. Once again, it depends on what you're trying to do. If there's ever been a team that holds on to the coach as long as possible, it's going to be the Steelers. If there was ever a division that was the poster child for never firing a coach, I mean, the Browns, the Bengals, the Ravens, they'll hold on to you for anything. I mean, it's fine. I always ask one question because you always see this in sports, who wants to get rid of somebody, whether it be Tom Brady, Marcus Mariota, Mike Tomlin. How easy is it to replace? And I'm not a big Steelers fan, so I don't watch. They're decent. I mean, they're not Super Bowl contenders, but you always feel like you got to mention their name. If you get rid of him, is the next guy going to drop you down a level? I think that's something that as a Steelers fan, as a Steelers organization, you got to ask yourself, how easy is Tomlin to replace?
Yeah, I asked only because we know how much of a player-friendly coach he is said to be. And sometimes when you're too player-friendly, guys think that they can get away. It's almost like being a parent, you know. The child always loved the parent that's really, really lenient, you know. But sometimes that's detrimental to him. And I just think right now, I think Tomlin is really not doing them any service. and I think they probably just need another voice there. But I said yesterday, Antonio Brown won't be a Steeler next year, so I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't see him being a Steeler next year either.
Yeah,
I definitely see him
he's
going
done.
somewhere else.
Don't let him go to Indianapolis, though. I'll say that right now. Don't let him go.
Oh boy!
And they're already talking.
Yeah.
They got tons of money. They've already shown you they can win with makeshift receivers and a easily put together defense. Don't let them get Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown because they got the money to afford it.
Yeah, they have plenty of cap space.
Now, if I was them, I wouldn't buy both. I wouldn't go into both because you're going to have to that offensive line that's getting bragged about so much. You're going to have to pay those guys eventually. But don't be surprised if one of them's wearing that coat helmet.
Definitely, I probably think it'll be Le'Veon. I think the Colts, if they get a running back, Lord have mercy, that'll just boost them up big time.
Right.
Oh yeah. I got one more question for you.
All right.
Gronkowski. We all know he's beat up. His numbers are declining. Will this be his last year?
No, I don't think so. Because this isn't like the Chiefs where I need you to run to this really far spot and catch this ball. The Patriots offense is all about being methodical and being on the same page. I mean, they keep guys like Wes Welker and Julian Edelman who aren't the fastest, who aren't the best, who aren't the tallest, but that rapport is there. Tom Brady can pretty much bird box it, close his eyes, and sling it over the middle of the field, and it's going to go for a first down. So if you look, yes, Gronk isn't what he used to be. He isn't the fastest tight end. He's still big, and he's still got some solid hands, but that rapport with Brady is still there, and I don't think that can be duplicated by either a outstanding rookie or a big-time free agent signing.
Yeah, Gronk is.
Let's be honest. They're not getting Travis Kelce, Greg Kittle, or
true.
They're going to get some guy like a Jimmy Graham, which still might have some in the tank, but that rapport, that rapport is not going to be there. And to the New England, who loves everything less than 10 yards, that's so important.
Yeah, exactly. Last question before we get you out of here. As a Kentucky fan, as a Kentucky football fan, let's specify. Okay. As a Kentucky football fan, what does it mean to have I've heard you talk about it before, the end of the show at RTF Sports, but just for the people, the listeners here, what does a 10-win season mean to a Kentucky football fan?
Well, it means a lot, considering it's the only third time ever that it's happened, first time since 1977. But to me, it means more than anything because Mark Stoops showed you what he can do when he gets his guys. Mark Stoops has been able to go into recruits' house and say, you can go sit on the bench at Alabama or you can start at Kentucky. And they picked starting at Kentucky. And Mark Stoops' first half of the seasons are amazing. 4-1, 5-1, 4-2 starts. What happens is the depth starts to show up, and we end 1-5, 1-6. Mark Stoops now has to go into these same kids' room and say, go sit on the bench at Ohio State or come sit on the bench at Kentucky. That's a bit of a harder sell. So what Mark Stoops has to do is get a 10-win season this year and next year to show you we got some staying power, to show you that I can take Josh Allen's and Benny Snell's and turn them into NFL players. Now, you come here as a 5-star and let me see what I can turn you into. This season, that 10-win was so imperative that I think that if he can duplicate this, you're going, and I'm not saying this just because I'm a fan, you're going to see Kentucky football take that step that I hate to compare it to Clemson, but how they kind of came from mediocre, being in the Music City Bowl, to now being a contender. Obviously, they don't have the same history, but I think that's why that's so huge for that program, is because in this day and age where everybody wants to transfer and bounce and be on social media, they're showing you that Kentucky, you have a reason to come to Big Blue.
And I like Stoops. Stoops is is one of my favorite D coordinators that Florida State has had since Mickey Andrews retired. He had that defense on point when he was there. You got guys like LaMarcus Joyner that he coached, the safety for the Rams. But I definitely agree. I think in this day and age where guys know that they can go anywhere and go to the NFL, it's not like it used to be where you only had to go to certain programs to get looked at because you didn't have a TV deal and, you know, you was never in the spotlight. I think now with the emergence of social media, all these TV deals, ACC Network, Big Ten, you know, SEC, you know, I think guys don't really care where they go play at as long as they can go play and get on the field. You know, guys go to D2 and D3 and still make it to the NFL. So that's a good point.
And one thing that really helped our program, and it's funny you say that, is the SEC Network. Because what that allowed you to do is even when Kentucky was here before where they were winning 7 and 8 games consistently, their games where they would be mid-tier, their games would be shoved at like 3 o'clock on local TV. Well, even now when they're still just kind of mid-tier, the third, the fourth best team, when you got Alabama playing on ESPN, and then you got Florida playing on CBS, well, Kentucky then gets that primetime SEC Network game. So you got Kentucky playing at 7 o'clock, sold-out arena, nighttime, full of recruits on national TV. It just happens to come on the SEC Network. And then when you throw in apps like ESPN Watch, where you can watch it no matter what you have, the difference isn't noticeable. So instead of Kentucky playing at noon, who wants to watch that? Kentucky's playing at 7 o'clock. Everybody's tuning in some way or form.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I appreciate you for coming on the show. As always, it's always good to talk sports with you. Matthew Lyle, Big Blue Breakdown, Cross Sports Network, RTF Sports. I appreciate you for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, yeah. Always an honor.
Nice to meet you, man.
Hey, thank you.